Very much, members. We're quorate. We've got 3 members here. We've got Councillor Ashba, Campbell and myself. So we've been on a site visit, but what I'm going to do is just adjourn for the next 10-15 minutes. We'll reopen up then, just because we haven't got full complement. Difficulties on site in regards to weather. We took a bit longer than what we expected. So at 10-15 minutes we'll be back online. Thank you. And thank you very much to members and all members of staff as well for giving us that extra 15 minutes, allowing us to just get our thoughts gathered, ourselves into position. So it's great to see everybody in the hall. Very rare we see that now. And it's good to see a full complement as well. But I think first thing we have to do, this is a re-adjourned meeting. We just go to Claire, I think, for sending apologies. She can outline that, then we'll go to Robert after that to outline what we did on our site visit, then we'll go into debate after that. Claire.
Thank you, Chair. Can confirm we've got all 5 members present and all 5 members attended the site visit earlier today.
Excellent, thanks very much. That allows everybody to participate. Sorry, we've got the person who's signing can't hear. I think is the indication that I've got. I wonder if somebody could just put that in the chat just to see first. Sound's gone, I think is what he's saying. David's saying. Abby, can you see that? No, so we'll just we'll probably still continue. We'll just give a 30 seconds to a minute. We'll give a minute just to allow people to see if we can get that to work. I take it Fiona can't hear us either. If that's the case, we'll need to communicate with Fiona as well, just to so she can, every external to us understands.
Fiona can hear.
I think it's Nigel.
Is it Nigel or David? Nigel, sorry. Yep. Right, Nigel can't hear. Right then, we'll just keep going. I'll keep just blethering away so there is some kind of audio there, and he'll be able to. Still no sound says that is Nigel. You're absolutely right, Fraser Ashbrook. So.
Sorry, Chair, this is David. I'll jump on for now while Nigel sorts he's
Good
on
man.
your issues there. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I think probably just to be fine because I don't think it's going to be that long a meeting anyways. So somebody just got to convey that. I see in the chat to Nigel. Excellent, and he'll be able to see yourself, David. Great. So right, we'll continue on. So we were at Clare, sent apologies. We've got a full house. We're all physically present. We've enjoyed our site visit, and we've just got to pass over to Robert, and he's got to tell us what we looked at, what our observations were, and we can expand on that when we go into debate. Thanks, Robert.
Thanks, Chair. Just to recap, following the meeting of the local review body on the 1st of February, earlier this month, you were minded to undertake a site visit, and that was for 6 reasons. 1, to see the topography. 2, to better understand the operation and layout of the farm. 3, to look at the road and the distance between the farm and the application site. 4, to see the detail of the second house in terms of its DDR compliance. 5thly, to ascertain if the area around the farm hub was unsuitable. And finally, to better understand the need for a dwelling house on the site and ensure that the second dwelling house is not an appropriate alternative. Now, the site visit took place this morning at 11:30. We all convened at Chapel Farm. For the avoidance of doubt, I was present as independent planning advisor. The committee clerk was there, and the members of the LRB that were present were Councillors Hill, Jordan, Dashper, Carruthers as chair, and John Campbell. Mrs Hutchison, who's one of the applicants, was also there and took part in the site visit, and also John McCall, who is the agent for the applicants. Mr Hutchison was busy at the time of the site visit, so couldn't really participate. Now, we actually met on the farm unit itself, at the farm hub, if you like, at Chapel Farm, and we looked at the small cottage that was there at the moment, which was the house on the unit, to look at its potential for DDR compliance and so on and so forth, and what level of adaptation might have been needed to make that suitable, and also to note its location relative to the farm buildings around. There were deliveries to the farm when we were there. It's obviously an active unit. There was a lot of activity ongoing. LRB members saw the farmhouse, they saw the farm buildings, they saw the activity, they saw the relationship relative to the road next to it and the application site. They also looked at 2 sites near the farmsteading that had been suggested as an alternative at one point, but it was agreed that there was documentary evidence had been submitted by the applicant which covered the reasoning as to why the applicant didn't think that was a suitable location. So once that had been looked at, the members walked past the flat area at the road end, which was also considered a potential site. It had been suggested, I think, by the case officer at one point, possibly at pre-app stage. So the members looked at that. The members then walked down to the actual application site itself, which was approximately a walk of about 400 metres, and they had a look at the application site, at which point the site meeting came to an end.
Excellent. Thanks so much for that, Robert. I think it's well summarised. I'll tell you what we haven't discussed yet, and we'll just because it was further information that was asked for as well. I know that I asked for some of this. I've read it all thoroughly, front to back, and got a further understanding in regards to the previous two decisions that had been made. I was on one of them outside, just brought back the memories in regards to the local review body, and looked at the Department of Planning and Environment Appeals, the information that was there, so looked at it as well. That was interesting as well. I don't think I was on that planning committee decision. But there was further information in regards to, I think it was H3 in particular, so we all got an extra pack of information. Was everybody content? I think you just have to make sure that everybody got that and they're satisfied with that information before we move into debate. Yep. Get nods or heads around everybody. Self as well, Chrissy? Yep, good. No, so everybody's happy with that. So my understanding was, for discussion at our last meeting, so this is my understanding, stroke perception. So the argument that had been made from the appellant, so to speak, in this case, but the notice of review, the appellants for the notice of review was that the previous decision had been refused on the grounds that it was too far away from the farm hub holding itself, but the hub itself, so that's a farm unit, the portal sheds, the existing traditional type buildings, and the farmhouse that's there. There had been arguments made, as Robert saying, maybe touched on, but arguments made and evidence led in regards to this, and the topography, the working operations of the farm, and such like, made it restrictive. So therefore, this piece of land, layout width, was still within control and ownership of the farm owners, and felt that was the appropriate setting where the topography suited a site, and so on and so forth. The house being built, and would still allow it, the retiring farmer, semi-retired farmer, to still be active within the farm holding over the next years, and allow it to expand and the business to grow. So I think the principal development with the information we got, being the farm labour unit in particular, or the farm labour report, I should say, that I think we'd accepted that. So this is, I'm summarising, so members can come back and tell me if they think they were wrong and they agree or different, or otherwise then go into proper debate. I think the principle of development had been established, but it was a site allocation in particular only. And it's, I think, if we can try on the back of what Robert just outlined, and the fact that we're going to discuss whether that distance away, the previous applications, appeals in the review that's been done, whether we take any cognizance of them at all in regards to this particular application. My personal view is that we should, and I do personally, but I would always open up to members. I'd rather be steered by the committee as try and steer the committee as a chair. I'm here to preside and keep order and allow people to get their voices heard. But that's my understanding. So the principle of development was beyond any doubt in regards to just the location of the farm. So do we feel satisfied in real terms that the site being proposed through this notice of review is a satisfactory site in which to put a new dwelling house? And if we do, the reasons why. So I can open it up to MD, or if I don't get any hands up, I'll kind of start off. John, Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Well, first of all, I thought the site visit was a great help because quite often we see the photographs or the overhead photographs, we see documents in the papers, but you don't really get a feel of just how the lay of the land, shall we say, which is where I was trying to come from. So in that perspective, I thought the site visit was very informative in helping me, to come to a conclusion later on in the debate. In particular, the farm itself, I think we've kind of established, in my view, that there isn't a real location in the farm locality itself. So going back to what you were saying, Chair, the question is where the proposed site is it, within the confines of the farm and things like that. So I'm happy to listen to the debate later on, but and I'll pitch in further on. But it's kind of made up my mind of where I need to go in the debate, I suppose. Thanks, Chair.
No, thanks so much for that contribution, John. Much appreciated. Ben, Councillor Dashper.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I mean, the site visit was quite useful for me, but I did have some thoughts about how that particular site is in relation to the small buildings groups. I don't think it was particularly close to the farm in question, personally. It was quite a walk up that hill. but it is surrounded by other buildings. So I'm just wondering, does that class as a small building group? Can we get some information on that? Or because those buildings aren't owned by the applicants, so I don't know what that relation is exactly.
Turn your mic off, please. Thanks, Ben. Just for the sake of it's the audio recording more than anything, and the feedback that people get. So we'll go to Robert with that, but I was of the exact same view. When you read the report, it says it's clearly defined, it would not be defined as a small building group. When I looked at Google Maps and on site this morning, I thought I would personally, my interpretation would have been it was a small building group, but ultimately it's for the planning professional for us to give us that advice. Robert?
Chair, that's correct. My understanding is the application was determined under LDP2 policy H3, which is housing in the countryside. You've got the related adopted supplementary guidance to that, which is also called housing in the countryside. And additional to that, as part of the development plan, you've now got National Planning Framework for Policy 17, rural homes. So it's been looked at in terms of the retirement succession part of that policy, and it's been assessed on that basis. It hasn't been looked at in terms of a small building group at all. And the decision that's been taken by the appointed officer is on the basis of those policies.
Ben, are you asking that if you wanted to, if you seen it as if your perception was it is a small building group, would you be able to use that as grounds? Was that what you were saying or not?
No, I was just asking for clarification, Chair. Just in terms of what the policy is on that. If we're not looking at it under the lens of a small building group, and we are looking at it under the lens of the retirement policy, that's correct.
Excellent, thank you. Thanks very much. Emma, no, we've got no further. No, I mean, I'm happy to pick up similar to John. So I did look at your point as well. When I looked at that, I looked at Google Maps as well, but I was trying to locate the site exactly in the run up to the site visit. I thought that looks like a small building group to me, 3 or more distinct. Got that relationship, cohesiveness, so on and so forth on site. That would have, again, but anyways, that's ruled out. You've got to look at the base of the merits of what's been applied for, and it's been applied for by the way of a retirement home for the sake of succession. And I looked, I think it's page 29 of the extra information that we've got. I'll just, it was in regards to, what's it, that one? I'm trying to find it. No, I think it was the outcome. Was it beyond it? It was the outcome of the reporter in regards to the other appeal. So it was a similar case, and the reasons that they felt very much that 400 metres or so still was well within a workable arrangement from somebody being retired in the distance from the farm, or even a worker in general terms. And I would agree with that. That's the grade. I would align myself to those particular views. I suppose going back and summarising my thoughts in the wider, so we've seen there was sheep on site with the 2 potential sites that could have been there. With the sheep that were present, that was probably there for a particular reason today. It might have been just the sheer operations anyways, but I think it certainly helped me make up my mind. That would affect, clearly, that's part of the operational functionality of the farm. That would affect that. There's another site where there was storage of food materials and bedding and such like. We looked at that. Extra information, I suppose, Robert, we did gain on the day, was round about the historical element to that. I don't know if that, I think that was kind of, it was made clear from us, from the applicant, so to speak, or the appellant, I should say, that we should have been made aware of that. We discouraged that conversation, but ultimately we were made aware of the historical element in regards to where there's potential second site. Do you think that would have any consideration at this meeting? I'd probably just rather rule that out at this moment in time if I could.
Chair, just coming back to the appeal decision you mentioned, that's the additional document that was asked for and which was circulated. So it's the appeal decision PPA 172165 at North Cowshaw, that might be the wrong pronunciation, I'm not sure, Shield Hill, Lochmaben. So when I look at that document, I think the relevant paragraph, Chair, is paragraph 15, which says, and this is the reporter, I do not find the distance between the appeal site and the farm buildings to be particularly significant in practical terms. The distance of approximately 380 metres remains close enough for someone in the house to be quickly on hand at the farm if required. So I think that was the reference to the distance you were looking for.
So just in regards to, I will bring you right in, John. So in regards to the There was further information that was gleaned that we didn't ask for in regards to the, I suppose it was going back to the 12th century. It was the existing chapel, I think there was other things. So there was historic, archaeological, I think in particular, in regards to that site. The topography, its actual use was what the original argument was, but see that extra information that we gleaned on the day without asking for it, is that necessary, do you think, at this moment in time? Or I'd just like to rule that in or out in your view as a planner.
I think when I look at the decision that's under review, that there's an acceptance that in principle the development accords with LDP2 policy H3 and the related supplementary guidance, and also, although it doesn't go into as much detail, policy 17, that's rural homes of MPF4. What the key issue is here, when I look at the decision notices, is in relation to the location of the house. Is the location of the house appropriate relative to the farm unit? It's not about the overall concept of a retirement succession dwelling house on the unit. It's just really a question of where that should be located. That seems to be the key determining issue.
Thank you. Okay, I'll dismiss it. So, John, you want to come in now. John, Councillor Campbell.
Yep, thanks very much, Chair. No, I appreciate what Robert was saying there. I think looking at what you were picking up on the extra information, Chair, on page 29 there that Robert read out, you know, about the distance, I think that's probably where we are, you know, when it comes to is this particular new build, you know, within a reasonable distance, shall we say. I think that's the argument where we're going to go, because even our own supplementary guidance, it just relates to a short walk from the farm. I mean, what's a short walk? For example, how long's a piece of string? You know, I mean, a short walk for me and you might just be half a mile, for example, but for somebody else it might be shorter than that. You know, so it's relative to where we need to go, I suppose, Chair, in this situation. But I'm always minded that we should always look at you know, the report in front of us and treat it on its own merits. As yeah, we can take guidance, or you know, we can look at previous reports and how the appeal went on a similar situation, even though it makes reference of 380 metres, and I think we were talking about was 400 or just over 400 metres. So I mean, is 380 metres a short walk? Is 400 metres a short walk? Is 500 metres a short walk? Really don't know in this moment in time, because there's absolutely no clear guidance. I think it's just a perspective. As I was sitting on this particular case, we need to come to, you know, in our own minds, is that a reasonable short walk, and is it in relation to the farm? Thanks, Chair.
Excellent. Thanks so much, John. Councillor Hill, Chrissy.
Yeah, hi. Relatively, I mean, I don't go walking, but I thought it was a short walk. 400 metres, 420 metres, I think the lady said, give or take. I felt that it was close enough to the farm. I didn't feel it was, you'd need to get in a car. The lady did, obviously, because of her disabilities. But I felt, you know, when you're working on a farm, you're walking constantly, you're walking across fields that will probably be the length of the same distance. So to me, when you look at a farm, and I looked at, you know, across the fields, it's like walking across one of their fields to a further house. Just we walked up the road. So for me, I don't feel that it's out of distance. And I don't know which point we say what we think, but for me, it wasn't a long walk. It was just a stone's throw away, in effect. Thanks.
That's no problem. Ben, Councillor Dashba.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I mean, it wasn't a huge walk, but I'm looking at the supplementary guidance 4.3. The siting of a new house should be such that it maintains a presence on the farm unit. So you know, that's up for interpretation as to what is a farm unit. When I think of that word farm unit, I think of a collection of buildings or land all together. That's a unit to me. When I'm looking at this, I'm thinking of two separate locations, so it's difficult for me to visualise that as one unit, especially considering that there's actually other residential houses between the two locations owned by other people. So to me, that's sort of segregated, if you see what I mean. But just food for thought. Any thoughts?
Thanks very much, Ben. Cheers. So my thoughts on that, I mean, Robert, I'll come back to you as well in regards to this, but we're always told that each case, John's just touching each case in its own merits, and you can only determine what's been applied for at that time. And I think what we find our circumstances here is that what they're saying, I think we've probably established, I would feel the same as John, the two sites that were potentially pointed out, the one that pointed clearly, I say by the previous report, we would discuss that on site, but because of the topography and the working arrangements, I would rule them out. So it is on within the hub, and I think the hub is referred to, you're absolutely right, within the supplementary guidance that it's ideal within where the cluster of buildings is. But what's being asked for here, they're saying, listen, we have got no sites within that unit because of the topography. Now, if it was a massive line at a real level area, then it would be close to the site, they would be able to achieve that. Because of the topography, the working arrangements within the farm itself, and the conflict that would come with building another house there, they just have to create area elsewhere. So they say they've got this site which is available to them, and they've applied for this because it's still, for them, it's within a short working distance. I would agree with what John said, referring back to page 29, paragraph 16 is what's 15, sorry, is what's been referred to by Robert. And the point I was talking about earlier, I look at all paragraphs 12 through to 15 actually when I was listening to that, but that particular point, is it a working acceptable distance from, because there is no available sites, in my view, on the farm itself, and that's been argued, I would say yes it is. In this case it is, because the principle of development has been established through the labour requirement report in particular. So say there is a need there, but actually there's no available sites in there, so will we allow in this particular case, under the circumstances, a house to be built there, because that's within their ownership, their control, and they can actually do it. So any sites in between, the reason I say in between is out with their control, they don't own them. And if they were to build in the field, say they came back in the field in between, well, that's workable land, it comes back into the same. But they've come up with this particular site, and that's what we've got to look at in particular. So I think your points are right, they're absolutely right on the money, Ben, but going back to the arguments, what they're saying is, well, okay, that's absolutely fine, but we need this for the functionality and the future sustainability, financial sustainability of the farm itself. And I would agree with John that for me, paragraph 15 in particular, I do think it's workable. We've done it in one through a local review body, one through Department of Planning and Environment Appeals. I felt they're very the same through the decision of a reporter. I would align myself to those particular decisions that have been made in this particular case because of the arguments that have been put forward. And I would move that. If it comes to that point, I'll move it if we don't get a full agreement. Councillor Campbell, John.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. Yeah, I take on board what Councillor Dash was saying, 4.3 on page 12 in the supplementary guidance. I mean, it clearly does say that the siting of the new house should be such that it maintains a presence on a farm unit. But I think after the site visit, we can clearly see that we cannot maintain that, on the farm unit. So where else is this, new build going to go? Now, where the application is not that very far away, and it is within the short distance, in my view, of within the farm. But also just picking out on that particular part, although it says locating the site remotely is discouraged, it doesn't say that you cannot do it. It's discouraged, yes, and I would agree with that in principle for most succession planning for the farms and things like that, for retirement of the farmer. If there is an area and I would imagine most farms there probably will be a place pretty close to the unit, but in this case we've already established, or at least in my mind I've already established, that we cannot successfully put a new build within the farm unit, and the only alternative, and if we're just looking at this, and I believe the ground actually belongs to the farm anyway, so it's still related to the farm as such on that particular site for the new build, and because it's got all the other buildings along that road there, although we're not looking at it as a small building group, but if you look at some of the drawings on small building groups, it's like an infill site, and that relates well to one of the diagrams. I think it's on page 9 on the supplementary thing. Infill site seems to be acceptable when it comes, if we were determining it as a small building group, although we're not. this seems to be like a wee infill site along that road. So in my mind, it seems to blend in, if that makes sense. And if it is related to the farm, and then if you're perhaps want to move that, Chair, I'm quite happy to second that.
So up to Chrissy, Councillor Hill to make her comments, and I'll move towards making a decision. Chrissy.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I was going to say as well, even though it's not on the farm unit, the people own it, so it's still part of the farmland. And I think what's possibly happened in the past is plots have been sold off from the farm, which has generated these new houses to be built in between. But like I say, I'm happy, like Councillor Campbell said, to agree to it based on what we saw this morning and based on those factors that it's not far away and it's owned on their land. So to me, it's still part of that farm. Thank you.
No, thanks so much for that, Chrissy. Emma, you've not spoken yet. It's up to yourself. You're absolutely welcome to come in and make comment.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, everybody's raising valid points. I'm inclined, it is a fair walk when you consider that you're walking past other houses from the farm, but equally, where else will you build it? I agree with everything everyone's said, and I've got nothing new to add. So I'm happy to go to a decision when everyone else is. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, if that's the case, then I'm happy to move that we do allow. I think it's not always approve it. We approve it, and I forget the exact lines because we change between appeals, reviews, and plan applications. But we do allow this to go ahead. We have an approval for this application, and it's on the grounds that, looking at paragraph 15, page 29, the extra information that we got in the previous appeal decision, that it is within a walkable, comfortable decision, because the other sites have been argued that they're not acceptable in this case. That's where we looked at accessibility and all sorts of other things on the site, but the topography of the land, the working arrangements within the farm, I think it's been demonstrated without doubt, doesn't lend itself to having a house built in that area. So the only alternative is this site, and I would say it is acceptable, that it's still close enough, and we have historic decisions that would reflect that. John, Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, thanks for letting me back in, Chair. I suppose, like I've already said at the start, that we have to treat every report on its own merits, and this is unique to me in this circumstances. Any other circumstances, it would probably be agreeing with the report, or the case office report rather, and refusal. So although it's unique in my mind, I hope this doesn't mean to say that going forward from this point that that this sets a precedence, because it clearly doesn't in my view, because we have to treat every application that comes forward, whether it's through an LRB or through planning, on its own merits. And I just want to make that point that we're not setting a precedence here. It's a unique circumstances that's come to this agreement, shall we say, and that we take it forward on that basis. Thanks, Chair.
I think we just need clarity for Robert on that point, because I think you're correct.
Thanks, Chair. From listening to that, what you're saying is you believe that this proposal accords with LDP2 supplementary guidance on housing in the countryside, specifically paragraphs 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4 and 4.5, which is the section on retirement and succession. And on that basis, by virtue of it according with that, it therefore accords with LDP2 policy H3 housing in the countryside in principle, and also National Planning Framework for Policy 17 Rural Homes, Part 8.6, which also looks at retirement succession. So if I'm hearing you correctly, Chair, you're thinking this actually does comply with the terms of the development plan?
That is what I'm trying to say, but because the other sites have been they're inaccessible, and they've been demonstrated clearly that they can't be used to build in this particular case, a house that will be functional and workable for the actual farming unit itself. Yep. So we've got non-heads. Has anybody got a counter to that? Any counter amendments, I should say? No. So we've got either mover or and a seconder, or it's been proposed and it's been accepted, either or, whatever way it's been recorded. I suppose at this point in time then, I'll ask you just to summarise what you said here again. I'm going to ask you to summarise that decision, then we're absolutely clear for the record, then we'll finish up. Thank you. Robert?
Thanks, Chairman. My understanding was that you were making an alternative decision, so you were overturning the appointed officer's decision in this case. You were minded to grant planning permission in principle on the basis that the proposal accorded with LDP2 supplementary guidance in housing in the countryside, paragraphs 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4 and 4.5, which relate to retirement succession. And on that basis, because it complied with that, it also accords with LDP2 policy H3, housing in the countryside in principle, and also National Planning Framework 4, policy 17, rural homes, part 8.6, which also looks at retirement succession. The only question really I would have at this point in time is, are you minded to see any conditions and reasons and directives attached here?
What have you got prepared, Robert? I think I did see some in here actually, do you know, the historical, but I'll just let you...
I did prepare some in case you were minded to take an alternative decision to the appointed officer. Now, because it's an application for planning permission in principle, I think your first condition, Chair, you might want to consider is one which looks at the implementation of the permissions. So condition 1, part A, that the development hereby granted planning permission in principle must be begun within 5 years of the date of this permission, and B, further applications for all of the matters specified in conditions below must be submitted to the Council's Planning Authority within 3 years of the date of this permission. That's a fairly standard time frame condition for an outline planning permission, or permission principle rather, for a house. The reason for that condition would be in order to define the duration of the planning permission in principle in accordance with the provisions of Section 59 of the Town and Country Planning Scotland Act 1997 as amended by Section 32 of the Planning Scotland Act 2019. The second condition, again this is fairly standard for permission in principle for a house, would state that no development in respect of this planning permission in principle shall take place unless further applications accompanied by plans showing all of the matters specified in conditions 3 to 6 below have been submitted to and approved by the Council's Planning Authority. So that is basically setting up a requirement for matters of detail to be subject to further applications to be submitted and looked at and assessed in accordance with policy. It's not looking at the principle of the development. What you're doing here is granting the principle of a dwelling house at this site. So the reason for that condition would be permission is hereby granted in principle only, and no permission is granted for the details shown in the approved plans. Matters of detail are to be the subject of subsequent applications for approval by the Council's Planning Authority. So the other draft conditions I thought would maybe be of interest, Chair, relate to those matters of detail. So condition 3, layout, 4, design, 5, external appearance, and 6, landscaping. Now I can go through these in detail. Condition 3 would read, this shall include cross sections of the site showing a datum point and final floor levels of the dwelling house, position of the dwelling house within the site, provision for car parking and garaging of vehicles within the curtilage of the site, and details of all accesses, fences, walls and hedges, and foul and surface water drainage. The reason is just the same as condition 2.
At that particular point, I'll cover the surface water trapping and the access visibility lines and such like. Take it, yep. Because a standard condition usually, as long as it's going through my mind, it's your access, visibility, sight lines, your access itself, right geometries along with the surface water trapping, because in particular that case looks like the water will flow from the site onto the public road.
Yes. Sorry, I should use my microphone. Yes, Chair, that's correct. Condition 4 recommended would be design. This shall include planned sections and the elevations of the dwelling house and all other buildings and any other structures. Again, the reason being the same as condition 2. Recommended condition 5, external appearance. This shall include a specification of the colour and type of all materials to be used on walls, roofs, windows, doors, rainwater goods and any other external finishes to the dwelling house. Reason again as per condition 2. Condition 6, landscaping. This shall show the treatment of land other than buildings forming part of the site, including planting of new trees and shrubs, grassed areas, hedges, retained trees and other retained vegetation, details of level changes, hard surfacing, erection of walls, fences or other means of enclosure, formation of banks, terraces or other earthworks, and the layout of gardens, courts and other amenity features designed to provide a landscape setting for the development. And again, suggested reason for that condition would be the same as condition 2. suggested condition 7 would read that notwithstanding the terms of condition 2 above, an energy statement shall also be submitted in accordance with the provisions of Dumfries and Galloway Council Local Development Plan 2, supplementary guidance on sustainability, reducing carbon emissions in buildings, and that's from September 2021, and it's Appendix 1. The reason for that being to ensure that as a new dwelling house, the proposed dwelling house demonstrates that a proportion of the carbon emissions reduction standards set by Scottish building regulations will be met through the installation and operation of low and zero carbon technologies. And condition 8 recommended was just picked up from the Council's Roads Planning Team Leader consultation response, which is in your paper, and that says that the dwelling house hereby granted planning permission shall not be occupied unless and until the following have been provided within the application site. A, an off-street car parking area sufficient for no less than 2 cars, and B, a turning area and hard standing sufficient to enable a car to enter and exit the public road in forward gear at all times. Thereafter, the said parking and turning areas shall be kept clear from obstruction and shall be retained only for that purpose for the lifetime of the development, unless otherwise agreed in writing with the Council's planning authority. And the reason for that condition would be in the interest of road safety and to ensure appropriate provision to meet demand arising within the application site. In addition to that, I had 3 possible directives for you to consider. The firstly being advising that a notice must be made of the start of development, which is standard. Secondly, that a notice be submitted advising of the completion of the development. And thirdly, simply a note to take heed of the advice provided in the Scottish Water consultation that's in your papers, dated 27th of March 2023. Mm-hmm. So that is certainly all I would recommend, Chair, but you know, obviously it's within your power to add to that or change that or subtract from it as you wish.
Oh, up to members if they think those conditions, I'm going to satisfied with them level of conditions. They're quite detailed. I won't ask you to repeat that clear as I was. So, no, so long as you've captured that, then we've got it, and Robert's really did, and that's why I went to Robert first, because I thought it would be as detailed as that. So that's excellent. So members, the decision's been made that it's been approved. Hopefully that's either that'll be conveyed back through the agent. So thanks very much, members. Privilege and a pleasure to work with you today, as it always is, and hopefully we'll see you at the next meeting. Thank you.